I still don't know why I listened that fast. Maybe it was the tone, maybe it was the look in his eyes, or maybe I just recognized something I hadn't seen in years at that office. Fear. It was a Thursday morning at the Department of Transportation, the kind that smelled like burnt coffee and policy briefs. I was a senior analyst in procurement integrity, fancy words for the guy who checks paperwork before someone gets fired. I'd worked there 9 years, knew every hum of the HVAC, every voice in the hallway. Nothing ever surprised me until that morning. We had a quarterly review scheduled with the assistant director, a woman who smiled like a blade. Everyone was tense because rumors said the Office of Inspector General was running quiet audits. Nobody knew which department. Nobody wanted it to be ours. My intern, Caleb, was the quiet type. Grad student, cybersecurity background, didn't talk unless you asked. He'd been with me 3 months. Smart kid, observant, too calm for a 22-year-old. That morning, he brought me the revised contract logs for the Northeast Rail project. Neat columns, color-coded notes, standard procedure. Except when he handed me the folder, he didn't leave. He just stood there, watching the door. Then he leaned slightly, his voice barely audible. "You need to leave, now." At first I thought he was joking. "Leave," I said. "The meeting's in 10 minutes. His face didn't change. "Don't ask. Just go. Take your badge and your phone. Walk out like you forgot something in the parking lot. Don't come back until I text." Something in my gut went cold. I didn't argue. I just left. No dramatic exit. No questions. Just walked down the hall, past the framed mission statements and fake plants, nodded to reception, and pushed through the glass doors. The air outside hit like a shock. I made it halfway across the plaza when I heard it. The sudden crackle of the intercom, then the metallic click of the building's magnetic locks engaging. The front doors sealed behind me. 2 black SUVs pulled up by the curb, tinted windows, federal plates. Inside, I saw through the glass. Security agents flooding the lobby, people being herded toward the conference room. It wasn't a fire drill. It was an internal raid. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my ID badge like it belonged to someone else. My phone buzzed. A message from Caleb. "Don't answer calls. Don't text anyone. Just wait." So I did, for 4 hours. I sat in my car across from the Federal Plaza, watching the gray building like it might exhale smoke. Nobody came out. No one went in. At 12:47 p.m., my work email access was revoked. I tried the VPN. Dead. By one odd, local news vans had parked at the far end of the street. A reporter in a bright coat practiced lines in front of a camera. Words like investigation, procurement irregularities, possible misconduct. My department, my building. I wanted to run back in to explain, to tell them there was a mistake. But my rational brain, the one that kept me alive in government, told me something else. If you're not in the room when the knives come out, don't go back in to ask who's bleeding. At 3:05, Caleb texted again. "You're clear. Go home. I'll call later. No signature. Just that." I drove home through DC traffic, the kind of slow crawl that forces you to think about everything you've ever ignored. By the time I reached my street, I realized my hands were still shaking. I kept replaying it, his face, his voice, that absolute certainty. How did he know? Why me? I turned on the TV. Every major network was running a headline. Federal agents conduct surprise audit at Department of Transportation offices. Possible data. Breach under review. They showed the building, the lobby, the same conference room I'd left that morning. One of my coworkers was escorted out in handcuffs. Another was covering her face with a folder. My phone rang. Unknown number. I froze. Let it go to voicemail. Then another. Then 3 in a row. The 4th was from my boss. I didn't answer. I sat in the dark living room, still in my ID lanyard, watching the glow of the TV and trying to understand what had just happened. All I knew was this. Something had detonated inside that building, and somehow a kid who barely spoke had pulled me out seconds before it went off. When Caleb finally called that night, his voice was steady. "You okay?" "What the hell was that?" I asked. "You were about to be part of something you didn't sign," he said. "Trust me, walking out was the best thing you've done in years." Then silence. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He paused. "Now they'll need someone to blame." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, realizing I'd just traded my career for a question I didn't understand. But that was just the beginning. By the next morning, my name was already circling the rumor mill. The federal email system might be slow, but gossip in government moves like wildfire. When I showed up at the office, because I had to, the security guard didn't even meet my eyes. He just handed me a visitor badge instead of my usual one. That told me everything I needed to know. Inside, desks were half empty. Two of my coworkers were whispering by the copier. They stopped when I walked in. The assistant director's door was closed, blinds down, which never happened. My stomach twisted. I tried logging in to my computer. Access denied. Before I could even stand up, I heard heels clicking behind me. "Mr. Hayes?" It was compliance. Two of them, both carrying clipboards, both smiling in that bureaucratic way that means you're already guilty. We just need you to say it. "Would you come with us, please?" They led me to conference room 3B, cold, windowless, half lit. There was a man in a dark suit, already sitting at the end of the table. He didn't introduce himself, just started talking. "Mr. Hayes, your name appears on several procurement authorizations related to the Northeast Rail project. Would you like to explain those signatures?" I frowned. "Those aren't mine." He flipped a page. "You're sure?" I leaned forward. There it was, my signature, or something close. Same tilt, same line weight, but not mine. Whoever forged it had access to internal PDFs and metadata. It wasn't sloppy. It was intentional. "I didn't approve those documents," I said carefully. "Check the metadata on the digital stamp. It'll show my account wasn't logged in." He smiled faintly. "We already did." That's when I realized this wasn't about finding the truth. It was about assigning the narrative. They questioned me for 2 hours. Same cycle. "Why did you leave before the audit? Who told you there'd be one? What were you trying to avoid?" Every answer I gave sounded like an excuse, even to me. I finally said, "Because my intern told me to leave." They exchanged a look. "Your intern, and what was his last name?" "Caleb Rains." The woman jotted something down. "We'll follow up." They didn't. By the end of the day, I was temporarily reassigned pending review. My keycard access was revoked, my work email suspended, my ID flagged. I was told to rest at home until contacted, which, in government language, means you're radioactive, and no one wants to stand too close. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at a folder of printouts. The ones Caleb had given me just before everything went to hell. The logs, the contracts, the timestamps. I'd gone through them a dozen times. On the surface, they were clean. But there were small things that didn't line up. Page numbering inconsistent. Signatures in odd order. Vendor codes that didn't exist in the database. It was almost perfect. Almost. At midnight, my phone lit up. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You shouldn't have gone back," Caleb said quietly. "They think I forged documents. They know you didn't, but it helps if they pretend." "What's really going on, Caleb?" He hesitated. I could hear background noise. Maybe an office. Maybe something else. "Someone in your department's been routing payments to ghost vendors. Millions. The signatures had to look legitimate. You were the cleanest name. Predictable. Quiet. Easy to fake." I gripped the phone. "And you knew this?" "Not until 2 days ago. I was assigned to data validation for an internal task force. They didn't tell me it was an active corruption probe until I tripped over your name." "So I'm the fall guy." "Not if you stay quiet." He hung up. Over the next week, I became invisible. Friends stopped replying. Calls went unanswered. The people I'd worked beside for almost a decade acted like they didn't recognize me. Government's funny that way. Loyalty evaporates faster than coffee in a conference room. Then on Friday, a memo went out, anonymously leaked. It listed suspected employees involved in contract irregularities. My name was number 3. I sat in my car outside headquarters, reading the PDF on my phone, heart pounding so hard it blurred the text. No mention of Caleb, no mention of the assistant director, just mid-level names. People like me, disposable. I called him. No answer. I texted. No response. Monday morning, HR called. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Turn in your laptop by noon. When I went to return it, my supervisor wouldn't even make eye contact. She just slid a manila envelope across the desk. Inside, a non-disclosure form and a statement acknowledging I was cooperating with ongoing inquiries. I signed, because what else was there to do? 3 days later, Caleb's name appeared on an internal transfer list. Cybersecurity Division, DHS assignment, federal level. He'd been promoted, not fired. That night, I got an email from an encrypted address. You're not crazy. Keep the folder I gave you. You'll need it soon. No signature. The next morning, 2 agents came to my house with questions. They asked about Caleb, about the rail project, about why I left before the audit. Their tone wasn't hostile. Not yet. But I could feel it shifting. Look, I said, I didn't do anything wrong. Nobody ever does, one of them replied. When they left, I sat on the couch staring at the folder again. The paper felt heavier now, like it was deciding whether to burn me or save me. Outside, sirens echoed down Constitution Avenue, and for the first time since this started, I realized something important. Caleb hadn't just saved me from being caught. He'd saved me from becoming complicit. I wasn't sure yet how, but I knew this wasn't over. Because in government, guilt doesn't fade. It gets reassigned. But the thing about government secrets is, they never stay buried long. They say silence in a bureaucracy means stability. That's not true. It means the storm's above you, and you're just too far down the chain to hear the thunder yet. By the second week, I knew I wasn't coming back. My badge access was terminated in every system. My email auto-replied with, on extended leave. Nobody told me anything official, but I'd been in government long enough to recognize the shape of exile. Still, I couldn't sit still. Every instinct screamed to do something. I went back through the folder Caleb had given me, page by page, line by line. That's when I saw it. One vendor code repeated twice under 2 different names. Same payment date. Same approval timestamp. Whoever did it wasn't just laundering contracts. They were cloning vendors. That's not a rookie trick. That's internal access. The signature on those authorizations? Assistant Director Mitchell. Hidden under mine. She'd used my approval macro, something only 3 people had permission for. One of them was me. The other 2 worked directly under her. I pulled up old audit reports, cross-referenced invoice IDs, and saw a pattern stretching back 18 months. Hundreds of thousands siphoned into expedited consulting services. And then it hit me. Caleb hadn't stumbled into this. He'd been sent into it. That night, I drove downtown. I parked 2 blocks from the OIG field office and sat there for half an hour staring at the windows. My stomach churned. There's a rule every civil servant learns early. Don't become part of the story. The moment you do, you're not protected by policy anymore. You're the liability policy covers. But this wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a setup. I took the folder, walked in, and asked for Agent Morales, one of the auditors who'd grilled me the week before. He looked surprised to see me. You weren't supposed to be here, he said. Neither was my signature, I answered, dropping the folder on his desk. He started to protest, but I opened the pages, pointing to the duplication. Look, vendor 7024B and 7824F. Same EIN, same bank routing number. One's listed as Greenlight Logistics, the other as GLLC Consulting. That's money laundering under your nose. He frowned, scanning the pages. Where did you get these? From the intern you didn't bother to question. That made him pause. Caleb Raines. Yeah, and guess who promoted him? His expression changed. You have no idea what you're stepping into. Try me, Morales exhaled. You're not the only one he talked to. By the next morning, everything moved fast. Too fast. My phone rang at 7:03 a.m. Unknown number. Hayes, you've got to get out of your house. It was Caleb. His voice was sharp this time. They're coming with a search warrant. They'll take everything. Your laptop, your drives, even your router. You need to leave now. What are you talking about? They're framing you for obstruction. You showed Morales the docs, right? That triggered it. They'll claim you tampered with evidence. Jesus Christ. Listen, he cut in. Pack the folder and go to 601 D Street, NW. Ask for Task Force Integrity. Tell them Raines sent you. The line clicked dead. I didn't think. I just moved. 10 minutes later, 2 unmarked cars pulled up as I drove away. I watched from a side street as agents knocked on my door. My heart was hammering so hard I could taste it. When I reached 601D, the guard looked me over like he was trying to guess what kind of trouble I brought in. Task Force Integrity, I said, sliding my license across the counter. You were expected, he replied, picking up the phone. Expected. Inside, an older woman in a navy suit met me, Special Agent Price. No smile, just focus. You've been through a lot, Mr. Hayes. Sit down. I told her everything. Caleb, the forged signatures, the duplicate vendors, the raid. She listened, barely blinking, taking notes in shorthand. When I finished, she said quietly, We've been tracking Mitchell's network for 6 months. The ghost vendors lead to a pack laundering scheme. State contracts funneled into campaign funds. Your department's one of 3 involved. And Caleb? He's one of ours, she said. Field analyst, cyber division. He's been undercover since March. I sat back, stunned. Why didn't anyone warn me? You weren't supposed to be part of it. But Mitchell forged your name to cover a shortfall. When Caleb saw your signature in the queue, he pulled you out. My throat went dry. And now? Now we make it official. That night, everything detonated. News broke at 9 p.m. Federal investigation uncovers multi-million-dollar procurement fraud. Inside Diat, assistant director among those implicated. Photos, statements, agents walking Mitchell out of the building in cuffs. I watched it from my couch, phone buzzing nonstop, messages from coworkers I hadn't heard from in weeks. Holy sh*t, you were right. Are you okay? They said you helped the investigation. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I poured a drink and sat in the dark, watching the news replay the footage over and over, Mitchell's face pale and furious as flashbulbs went off. I thought I'd feel vindicated. I didn't. Just tired. At midnight, my phone vibrated again. Unknown number. You're clear now. Get some rest. No signature. But I didn't need one. For a while it seemed over. The story made national coverage. Congressional hearings were announced, and the agency went into full PR lockdown. I was reinstated with back pay and a polite statement about exemplary cooperation. But the next week I found an envelope slipped under my door. No postage. Inside, a single photo. It was taken from a surveillance camera. Me, in Morales' office, handing him the folder. A red line drawn across it, and underneath, typed in all caps. You think this is over? That night, I sat awake until sunrise. Every sound in the hallway amplified. Every light flicker a threat. When I finally fell asleep, it wasn't relief that woke me a few hours later. It was realization. The raid, the forgery, the scapegoat. It had all been one piece of a much larger pattern. I hadn't been saved. I'd been repositioned. That night, I stopped being the hero. 2 months later, the hearings began. C-SPAN cameras, congressional microphones, the ritual of accountability, polished, rehearsed, hollow. My name was mentioned once, buried in the middle of a statement about procedural cooperation. Not praise, not blame, just bureaucracy's version of a shrug. I sat at home watching it, half a coffee gone cold. The sound turned low. They showed Mitchell in a gray suit, smaller now, answering questions with the same rehearsed detachment she used to give us in staff meetings. When the senator asked, "Were you aware your authorizations were falsified?" she didn't even flinch. I signed what was approved through proper channels. The room murmured. She didn't look like a villain. She looked like every manager I'd ever had. I turned the TV off. Silence filled the apartment again. That new kind of silence I'd learned to live with. Not peace, exactly. Just absence. The agency offered me reinstatement. Same title, same pay, a new desk in another building to ensure objectivity. I said no. You don't walk back into a burning house because the flames change color. Instead, I spent my mornings walking by the Potomac, breathing the air without schedules or security briefings. I stopped checking my government inbox, stopped waiting for permission. The government machine would move on. It always does. Someone else would take Mitchell's office. Another report would get written. Another name would get added to the system. But me? I'd finally stepped outside of it. A week later, I got a package at my door. No return address. Inside, a plain manila envelope and a single note written on government stationery. Told you to leave? You did. CR. Underneath, a small USB drive. I didn't plug it in right away. I made coffee first. Sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise, thinking about all the times I'd ignored my instincts because the rules said stay. When I finally opened the drive, there were only 3 files, each named by date. The first, a voice recording, Mitchell on the phone, approving contract adjustments. The second, a PDF, an internal memo, dated weeks before the raid, confirming the OIG already knew about her scheme. The third, a simple text document. It read, "They tried to bury the report. Now they can't. I didn't send it anywhere. I didn't have to." That same evening, a new wave of leaks hit the press. Emails, recordings, the rest of the names. Caleb had delivered the final blow himself. The next day, my phone rang. It was Morales. "You still have friends in the building," he said. "You should know. The rest of them are resigning. They're calling it restructuring." "And Caleb?" He hesitated. "He's gone. Transferred. No record of where." I thanked him and hung up. For a while, I just sat there, listening to the sound of the refrigerator hum in the city outside, the same city that eats people for a living. Quietly, efficiently, without appetite or remorse. And then, for the first time in months, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was over. On a Friday night, I went back to the office one last time. Not inside, just across the street. The building looked smaller. The badge scanners blinked red like restless eyes. A new nameplate gleamed where Mitchell's used to be. I stood there for a long minute, thinking about how many lives that glass box had chewed up and spit out. Then I walked away. I passed a coffee cart where I used to stop every morning. The same guy was there. He looked up, recognition flickering. "Haven't seen you in a while," he said. "Been busy," I replied. "Back to work?" I smiled. Something like that. Now, my mornings start earlier. I still wake up before 6. Some habits die hard, but instead of traffic reports, I read the news. Instead of security briefings, I write small notes. Thoughts I never had time to think. Sometimes when I walk past federal buildings downtown, I catch the reflection of my old ID badge photo in the glass and feel nothing. No nostalgia, no anger. Just quiet recognition of the man who didn't listen soon enough until one whisper changed everything. People think government ruins you with politics. It doesn't. It ruins you with silence. That day, I finally learned to listen. A few weeks later, an email arrived from an encrypted address. No subject, no body, just one attachment. A photo. It was the plaza outside the Doty building taken from above. Crowds, agents, flashing lights, the day of the raid. In the corner, one figure walking away, head down, folder under his arm. Me. And below, 3 words typed in the same clean, bureaucratic font. You're free now. I stared at it for a long time. Then I archived it. No reply, no trace. Just the faint hum of the city, and the quiet truth that for once I didn't owe anyone an answer. Peace isn't dramatic, it's just the absence of stupid. And for the first time in years, that was enough.